my fellow digital adventurers, and welcome to the Game Codex. I'm your host, Alora, and my quest, as always, is to untangle the wonderful, often weird, world of video games for everyone. We all have that game, don't we? It's more than just a title on a hard drive. It's a time capsule. It's the game where you met your best online friends. You knew every nook and cranny of its maps like the back of your hand. You mastered a meta that now feels like a forgotten language. You had a favorite spot in the social hub, a specific emote you'd spam after a victory, a shared inside joke with your clan that would make zero sense to anyone else. That game was your digital hangout, your second home. But what happens when you decide to go back? You boot up the launcher, maybe re-download a few dozen gigabytes of memories, your heart fluttering with a little bit of that old excitement. You log in, the music swells, familiar and haunting, and then you open the server browser, or you click Find Match, and you wait, and you wait. The estimated wait time just ticks up and up, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 30 minutes. You check your friends list. A sea of grayed-out names, each with a tiny, heartbreaking epitaph. Last online, 2,467 days ago. You're not a player anymore. You're a ghost, a specter haunting the empty corridors of a world that once pulsed with life. You're an archaeologist, but the ruins are made of pure nostalgia. And let me tell you, that is a powerful and bittersweet substance. Today on the Game Codex, we're embarking on a very specific kind of expedition. We're going to explore the digital ghost towns, the abandoned playgrounds, the online games that have been lost to time. We're going to dissect the entire life cycle of an online game, from its vibrant, chaotic birth to its quiet, server shutdown death. We'll look at the corporate calculus that pulls the plug, the passionate fans who fight to keep the lights on, and the unique, profound sense of loss we feel when a world we helped build simply vanishes. So grab a torch and your favorite I Was There gamer shirt. It's about to get contemplative, a little funny, and maybe a little sad in here. So let's start with the big, uncomfortable, and frankly kind of rude question. Why can't these worlds last forever? I mean, we have single-player games from the 80s that we can still pop into an old console and play exactly as they were. So why does my favorite 2015 team-based shooter now exist only in my memory and a few grainy YouTube montages? The answer is a cocktail of 3 main ingredients: technology, business, and humanity. It's a triple threat of obsolescence. First, and most fundamentally, technology. A single-player game is a closed system. It's a perfect, self-contained little snow globe. Once it's on your cartridge or disc, it's done. It doesn't need anything else. But an online multiplayer game? It's not a product you own. It's a service you access. Think of it like a digital nightclub. The game on your hard drive is just your ticket and your outfit. The actual party, the music, the other dancers, that's all happening on a server, a powerful, always-on computer in a warehouse somewhere. And maintaining that nightclub is expensive. You're paying for the real estate, the electricity, the security, the staff. In game terms, that's server costs, network infrastructure, and cybersecurity. Unlike a snow globe, if you stop paying the power bill for the nightclub, it goes dark, permanently. Which brings us to our second ingredient, business. Game publishers are not, despite what their heartfelt developer letters might say, charitable organizations running digital heritage sites. They are companies. And that server farm I just mentioned, it's a constant drain on the balance sheet. So how do you pay for it? You need a steady, reliable stream of income. This is where the model gets tricky. You have the initial purchase price, but that's a one-time thing. Then you have microtransactions, battle passes, and DLC. But all of those rely on one crucial, fickle resource: a large, active, and spending player base. It's a vicious cycle. As players naturally move on to the next big thing, maybe the meta gets stale or their friends jump ship, the population begins to dwindle. With fewer players, matchmaking takes longer, games feel less dynamic, and the whales, the big spenders, have fewer people to show off their fancy new skins to, so they leave too. Revenue drops. Now the company is faced with a choice: keep funding a nightclub for a dozen loyal regulars, or pull the plug and reassign the staff and servers to the new shiny nightclub they're building across the street. I think we all know what the shareholders would vote for. And finally, the most unpredictable element: humanity. Tastes change. Trends evolve. The game that was a revolutionary breath of fresh air in 2012 might feel clunky and dated in 2023. Furthermore, the community itself can be the cause of death. Rampant toxicity, cheating epidemics that the developers can't control, or just a simple failure to onboard new players because the skill gap between veterans and newcomers becomes a bottomless chasm. These are all social cancers that can kill a game long before the servers are officially shut down. So, you see, it's not a matter of if for most multiplayer games, but when. They are built on a foundation of shifting sand, technology that requires constant upkeep, a business model that demands infinite growth, and the ever-changing whims of us, the players. They're beautiful, chaotic, living communities, but by their very nature, they are also tragically, inevitably, mortal. So the player base is dwindling. The revenue stream is more of a revenue puddle. The writing is on the wall. But how does the plug actually get pulled? It's rarely a sudden, dramatic explosion. It's more like a slow, bureaucratic leak. The corporate decision to end a game is a fascinating and often frustrating process that follows a very specific, soul-crushingly corporate playbook. First, you enter the maintenance mode, or as I like to call it, the zombie state. This is when the company officially stops producing new content. No more map updates, no new characters, no more battle passes. The game is still technically alive. The servers are on, you can still log in, but it's on life support. The development team, the heart and soul of the project, is quietly reassigned. They're moved to a new secret project or laid off. The community managers left behind are like hospice nurses, delivering gentle, sad updates and trying to manage the community's grief while having absolutely zero power to change the outcome. It's a grim period, haunted by the ghost of what was. Then, after months or sometimes even years in this undead state, comes the official announcement. And these announcements are a masterclass in a very specific type of corporate speak I call apologetic business. They all follow the same formula. They always start by thanking the players. We are so incredibly grateful for this amazing community we've had the privilege to serve. It's the digital equivalent of, it's not you, it's me. Then they get to the meat of it. After careful consideration, we have made the difficult decision to sunset beloved game title. Sunset! What a gentle, beautiful word for what is essentially a planned demolition. They don't say, we're pulling the plug or we're flipping the kill switch. They say sunset, as if we're all going to be sitting on a beach, holding hands, watching the servers fade into a lovely orange glow. The announcement always includes a timeline. There's a date when they'll disable all in-game purchases because, heaven forbid, someone buys a skin 2 weeks before the apocalypse. And then, finally, there is the date, the official server shutdown. This period between the announcement and the final day is known as the wake period. And it's a strangely beautiful and melancholic time. All the toxicity, the try-hard competitiveness, it often just evaporates. What's the point? Instead, players organize final community events. They take group photos and iconic locations. They use the game in ways it was never intended, just to soak up the last moments of this shared space. It's a digital Irish wake, full of stories, laughter, and a deep shared sadness. And then it happens. The clock hits 0. You try to log in, and you're met with an error message. The website goes dark, replaced with a static page with the final announcement. The digital nightclub isn't just empty. The building has been vaporized. All that's left are the memories, the screenshots, and the videos. It's a unique kind of loss because there's no physical artifact. It's a shared memory that can no longer be visited. And in that void, something fascinating begins to stir. The fans. So the corporate overlords have flipped the switch. The servers are dark. The world is gone. But what if I told you that sometimes, in hidden corners of the internet, these worlds persist? This is where we enter the digital underworld, the passionate, chaotic, and legally murky realm of fan-run private servers. Imagine this. A group of dedicated players, often programmers and network wizards who loved the game, refuse to let it die. They've been reverse engineering the game's code for years, or maybe they've gotten their hands on old server software. They pool their money, rent their own server hardware, and essentially build a bootleg version of the digital nightclub in their own garage. It's janky, the plumbing might be held together with duct tape, and the bouncer might be their pet cat, but the music is playing again. These projects are labors of love, born from a pure desire to preserve a piece of culture. The people who run them aren't usually in it for profit. They're archivists, digital archaeologists keeping a flame alive. They'll often run classic, vanilla versions of the game, the one everyone remembers most fondly, before all those controversial updates. For the communities that find them, it's like discovering a secret village where your lost culture still thrives. But, and it's a very big but, we have to talk about the legal elephant in the room. These servers exist in a massive gray area. On one hand, you have preservation and fair use. On the other, you have very clear copyright and intellectual property law. The game's assets, the character models, the textures, the music, the code itself, are still owned by the publisher. When you run a private server, you're essentially using their property without permission. It's like building a replica of a Disney ride in your backyard and charging people $1 to ride it. Disney's lawyers would notice. And notice they do. Most major publishers have a zero-tolerance policy. They send out cease and desist letters, the legal equivalent of a fireball spell to the face. Some projects are shut down instantly. Others operate in a cat-and-mouse game, frequently changing domains and hiding their identities. It's a high-stakes game of whack-a-mole. The tragedy here is double-layered. First, the game was lost. And second, the efforts to save it are often legally squashed. It pits the heart of the community against the cold, hard letter of the law. And the law usually wins. Now let's move from the theoretical to the specific with a case that is, frankly, a masterclass in frustration. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you the tragedy of Titanfall. This wasn't a game that died of natural causes. This was a game that was neglected to death. For the uninitiated, the original Titanfall was a revelation. Giant, customizable mechs called Titans that would drop from the sky, pilots with parkour skills that would make a Mirror's Edge runner blush. It was fast, fluid, and incredibly fun. It developed a cult following that remains fiercely loyal to this day. But its life has been a Shakespearean drama of bad luck and baffling decisions. The primary villain in the story isn't a declining player base, but something far more sinister, persistent DDoS attacks. For years, the PC version of Titanfall has been unplayable, not because of low numbers, but because malicious actors have constantly flooded the servers with traffic, making it impossible to get into a match. It's like someone has been continuously pulling the fire alarm at our digital nightclub for years on end.
And here's where the frustration boils over. The response from the publisher, EA, and the developer Respawn has been crickets. For a long, long time, it was radio silence. Respawn was busy with the massively successful Apex Legends, which is, irony of ironies, is set in the Titanfall universe, and its smaller team seemed to have no resources or will to fix the original game. The community was screaming into a void, watching their favorite game be held hostage while its creators, who were right there, looked the other way. It's a unique kind of tragedy. The game isn't dead because people stopped loving it. It's on life support, being actively tortured while its parents are in the next room celebrating their new, more popular child. It's a story that proves sometimes a game doesn't fade away. It can be failed.
If the death of a shooter is a sudden heart attack, the death of an MMO is a slow, sprawling societal collapse. These aren't just games, they're worlds. And when they die, they leave behind true ghost towns. Let's look at two iconic examples. First, Star Wars Galaxies. For those who never experienced it, SWG wasn't just another theme park MMO. It was a sandbox. You didn't have to be a Jedi. You could be a chef, a dancer, a master architect who designed entire player cities, a bioengineer who created terrifying mutant pets. The player-driven economy and social structure were the real game. Then along came a controversial update, the combat upgrade and new game enhancements, which fundamentally changed the game to be more like other simpler MMOs. It was like the mayor of your favorite quirky, artistic city deciding to bulldoze all the local shops and build a bunch of generic strip malls. The community was shattered. When the servers finally shut down years later, it was the end of a unique digital experiment that many feel can never be replicated. And then there's WildStar. Oh, WildStar. This one hurts because it had so much potential and personality. It launched with a fantastic sci-fi cartoon style and a brilliant tagline, for the hardcore. It promised a return to challenging, unforgiving MMO mechanics. And for a while, it was glorious. But that hardcore focus became its Achilles heel. The endgame raids and dungeons had such punishing, complex attunement processes that a huge portion of the player base hit a brick wall and left. The world, once vibrant and full of promise, slowly emptied out. It's like a beautiful, bustling city built on top of a mountain with no roads leading up to it. Everyone admired the view from the bottom, but only the most elite climbers could actually live there. Eventually, even the climbers got lonely. Its shutdown felt like the closing of a spectacular theme park that never quite figured out how to let enough people on the rides. These MMO ghosts haunt us because we invested not just time, but a part of our digital identity. We had houses, businesses, social circles. Their closure isn't just losing a game, it's like losing a hometown. Now, let's talk about a modern tragedy. The games that were dead on arrival, not because they were bad, but because they were born into a brutal, unforgiving ecosystem. The live service trap. The poster child for this is, without a doubt, Lawbreakers. For context, this was a gravity-defying, fast-paced shooter from Cliff Bleszinski, a famous designer behind the Gears of War series. By all critical accounts, the game was really good. It was polished, innovative, and intensely skill-based. So what happened? It launched into a market already dominated by behemoths like Overwatch and Counter-Strike. It was a new indie band trying to get a gig in a town where the Beatles and the Rolling Stones were playing every night for free. The live service model creates a winner-take-all environment. Players have limited time and money. They're not going to invest in a new game's battle pass and grind out its cosmetics if they're not sure it'll be around in 6 months. This creates a self-fulfilling prophecy. A game launches to middling player numbers, which causes media outlets to run "Is this game dead?" articles a week after release, which scares off potential new players, which causes the numbers to drop further until the developer is forced to pull support. The game never gets a chance to find its audience, to have a No Man's Sky or Final Fantasy XIV style redemption arc. It's just gone. These games are the stillborn children of the industry. They are the what-ifs. What if Lawbreakers had launched in a different year? What if it had a free-to-play model from the start? We'll never know. They are cautionary tales for developers, proving that in the live service era, a great game isn't enough. You need a monstrous marketing budget, perfect timing, and a whole lot of luck just to get a seat at the table. When a person dies, we have rituals. We have funerals. We share stories. We bring casseroles. But how do you mourn a world? The death of an online game sparks a unique and very modern grieving process, one that plays out not in a church, but on forums, subreddits, and Discord servers. The first stage is always denial and bargaining. Maybe if we all sign this petition, maybe if we all log in on the final day, they'll see how passionate we are and reverse the decision. It's the digital equivalent of, "This can't be happening." Then comes the flood of digital eulogies. The subreddit becomes a memorial wall. People post their favorite clips, that time they pulled off an impossible 1v5 clutch, the hilarious bug that made their character spin uncontrollably, a simple screenshot of a beautiful sunset in the game's world. They're not just sharing videos, they're sharing proof that they were there, that they existed in that space, that it mattered. The comment sections become a virtual wake, full of '07 salutes and shared memories. But the most profound part of this process is the mourning of lost connections. For many, the game itself was just the venue. The real loss is the community, the friends list. You might have played with Shadow Assassin 42 for 3 years straight, but you never knew their real name. You never swapped socials. They were a fixture in your life, and then one day they, and the entire context in which you knew them, vanish forever. It's a friendship that becomes archaeologically inaccessible. You can't even go visit the park where you used to hang out because the park has been erased from existence. This process validates that these worlds were real. The friendships were real. The experiences were real. The grief is real. We aren't just mourning lines of code, we're mourning a piece of our shared social history. All right, we've wallowed in the sadness. Let's put on our futurist hats and ask, is there a way out of this? Can we use fancy new technology to make our digital worlds permanent? Cue the most controversial and buzzy word in tech, blockchain. Proponents will tell you that blockchain and decentralization are the saviors. The idea is this. Instead of a game running on a publisher's central servers, it would run on a distributed network, a peer-to-peer system. No single company could pull the plug because there is no single plug. The game's world, its assets, your hard-earned cosmetic sword, all of it could be stored on an immutable ledger that you truly own. It's the dream of a player-owned, permanent, and unkillable digital world. It sounds fantastic in theory, a digital utopia. But in practice, it's a minefield of problems. First, there's the massive technical hurdle. Running a complex, fast-paced game on a decentralized network is incredibly difficult. We're talking about latency issues that would make any shooter unplayable. Second, and more damningly, is the culture and reputation of blockchain gaming. For many, it's become synonymous with predatory monetization, environmental concerns, and get-rich-quick schemes disguised as games. The phrase play to earn often overshadows the fun to play. So while the core idea of decentralization for preservation is a compelling one, it's currently buried under a mountain of speculation, scams, and technical limitations. It might be a part of the solution one day, but for now it feels less like a lifeboat and more like a theoretical blueprint for a lifeboat that's being sold as an NFT.
So, if futuristic tech isn't the silver bullet, what about a simpler, more old school solution? What if we demanded that every multiplayer game comes with a planned legacy? What if we insisted on offline modes? I'm not talking about the bare bones LAN only support that sometimes gets patched in at the last minute. I'm talking about a dedicated, thoughtful archaeology mode that gets shipped with the game from day one. Imagine this. When the servers are scheduled to shut down, a final patch is released that turns the game into a fully playable single-player or peer-to-peer experience. This archaeology mode could include things like full access to all maps against advanced bots, the ability to host your own private servers, all cosmetic items unlocked so you can still appreciate the art, a museum mode that lets you walk through the environments, view character models, and listen to the soundtrack. This would transform a game from a temporary service into a permanent artifact. It would allow future generations to experience these worlds even if they can't experience the community. It would be a gift from the developers to the players and to the medium itself, acknowledging that their creation is a piece of culture worth preserving. Is it extra work for the developers? Absolutely. But it's an act of profound respect. It's the difference between building a beautiful sandcastle, knowing the tide will erase it, and then building it and then casting it in resin so people can admire it for years to come. We need to start valuing preservation as a core part of game development. And so, we reach the end of our tour through the digital afterlife. It's been a journey through server graveyards and memory lanes. We've seen that the death of an online game is a complex event, a collision of business, technology, and raw human emotion. These worlds matter. The friendships forged in them matter. The cultures that sprung up within them matter. They are the folktales of the 21st century. So the next time you're in your favorite live game, take a moment, look around, soak in the chaos, make a friend, take a screenshot, be present in that digital space. Because now you know the secret. All online worlds are living on borrowed time. They are beautiful and they are temporary. But by demanding better preservation, by supporting efforts to save them, and most importantly, by sharing our stories, we can ensure that even when the servers go dark, the memories, the communities, and the impact of these worlds are never truly lost to time. Thank you for watching the Game Codex. I'm Alora. Now go make some memories. I'll see you in the next game.